Brock Lesnar sends Obafimi to the hospital via ambulance. Backstage on Raw in April 2026 will go down as the darkest month in WWE history. The ambulance doors just closed, and inside that vehicle, strapped to a gurney with medical personnel working frantically on both sides of him, is the man who beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 42 in front of 100,000 people just weeks ago. The man who kicked out of the F5. The man who the entire WWE universe watched drag himself back from paralysis, from medical uncertainty, from the lowest point any performer in this generation has been pushed to, and produced the most emotionally overwhelming WrestleMania victory in recent memory. That man Obafimi, the champion, the future, the living proof that the next generation is not just arriving but is fully, triumphantly arrived, is being loaded into an ambulance outside a Monday Night Raw arena while Brock Lesnar walks in the opposite direction. Again. And if you felt your stomach drop when you saw those ambulance doors close, if something in you reacted to that image with a fury that goes beyond normal wrestling fan emotional investment, then you understand exactly what this moment means and exactly how unacceptable it is. Because this is not the first time. This is not the second time. This is a pattern. A deliberate, sustained, medically catastrophic pattern of one man targeting another with the specific intention of removing him from professional wrestling permanently. And the fact that it is happening again after WrestleMania, after everything Oba paid to be standing where he was standing, after WWE's authority structure had every reason and every opportunity to ensure that a backstage environment was not available to Brock Lesnar as a hunting ground, is the thing that should make every single person watching this product furious beyond the capacity of normal words to express. So let's use every word available. Right now. All of it. Let's start with the specific circumstances that allowed this to happen. Because this is not just a story about Brock Lesnar's violence. This is a story about institutional failure at the highest level. And that institutional failure needs to be named and examined and held accountable before we can talk about anything else. Because without understanding how Brock Lesnar was in a position to reach Obafimi in a backstage corridor on Monday Night Raw after everything that has already happened between these two men, we cannot understand the full scope of what Monday Night represents. Triple H runs WWE's creative and operational landscape with a philosophy of talent first, storytelling first, doing things the right way. That philosophy has produced some of the best professional wrestling of this generation. It has rebuilt trust with a fanbase that was exhausted and disengaged. It has created an environment where performers feel valued and protected and invested in rather than treated as interchangeable parts in a machine that does not care about their well-being. And that philosophy, which is genuine and which has produced real and meaningful results, is now being tested by a situation it was not specifically designed to handle. Because the philosophy of talent first assumes that the talent operates within a framework of mutual professional respect. It assumes that the people in the building, however competitive, however heated the storylines, however intense the personal dynamics, share a basic commitment to the idea that the institution's structure exists to serve and protect everyone inside it. Brock Lesnar does not share that commitment. He made that clear months ago. He demonstrated it through the initial hospitalization of Obafimi. He reinforced it through every subsequent escalation. And on Monday night in April 2026 he proved it one more time with a backstage attack so severe that an ambulance had to be called to take the WWE champion away from his own show. And the question that Triple H now has to answer publicly, completely, and without the diplomatic language that institutional authority figures default to when they are managing a situation they do not fully control, is why was Brock Lesnar in that building? What conditions needed to be satisfied for Brock Lesnar to be granted access to a Monday Night Raw backstage environment after the documented history of what he has done in that environment? And what is going to change, specifically and immediately, to ensure that the ambulance doors closing on Obafimi on Monday night are the last time this happens? Because if the answer to that last question is not clear, specific, and backed by action rather than words, then WWE's institutional authority has demonstrated that it cannot protect its performers. And a company that cannot protect its performers from a specific identified threat operating in a specific identified environment is a company that needs to examine its priorities with urgent and unsparing honesty. Now let's talk about the attack itself. Because the backstage setting of this assault is a critical detail that tells you everything about where Brock Lesnar's mind is right now and how he is thinking about what he is doing and why. Brock Lesnar is choosing the backstage. Consistently. Deliberately. With full awareness of what the backstage setting accomplishes that the ring cannot accomplish. And what it accomplishes is this: it removes the audience. Not the television audience we see the footage, we process the aftermath. But the live audience. The 60 or 70,000 people in the arena whose presence creates a specific social and moral force field around professional wrestling events. Crowds are not just passive witnesses to professional wrestling. They are active participants in the social contract that governs what happens in that environment. They are the reason certain lines do not get crossed inside the structure of a professional wrestling show, because crossing those lines in front of that many people, with that many witnesses, with the specific communal moral weight that a live audience carries, creates consequences that are difficult to escape. The backstage removes all of that. In the backstage, there are no witnesses except the people who happen to be in the immediate vicinity. There is no crowd to react, no communal moral weight, no social contract enforced by 60,000 simultaneous human presences. There is just Brock Lesnar and his target, and however much time Brock has before enough people arrive to make continuing the attack operationally complicated. Brock understands this. His choice to operate in the backstage is not just tactical, avoiding referees, avoiding the ring's structured rules, creating the isolation necessary for the kind of comprehensive damage he wants to inflict. It is philosophical. It is Brock making a statement about where the boundaries of his operation are. He is saying, through repeated backstage attacks, that he does not recognize the distinction between performance space and private space that professional wrestling's institutional framework depends on, that the building is his environment in its entirety, that Obafimi or anyone else Brock decides needs to be addressed does not have a safe space in any part of that venue, and that fundamental territorial claim, asserted through violence and demonstrated through repeated execution, is the most destabilizing thing Brock Lesnar has ever done in his professional wrestling career. More destabilizing than The Undertaker's streak ending. More destabilizing than any championship match. Because championships and streaks exist within the framework. What Brock is doing now exists outside it. The specific sequence of the April Raw Backstage attack follows a pattern that has become recognizable across multiple incidents now, and that pattern itself is information. Brock does not ambush randomly. He positions himself with knowledge of Oba's movement within the building, knowledge that implies either advance information about Oba's schedule and location within the venue, or the kind of patient surveillance that is itself a form of psychological warfare. He waits for the moment of relative isolation, not complete isolation, because part of the message is that witnesses exist and the attack happens anyway, that Brock does not require the cover of complete privacy to do what he is going to do. And then he executes with the specific, informed targeting that we have seen consistently across every attack. The neurological vulnerabilities identified in the original assault. The systems that Oba has been working to rebuild and reinforce since the paralysis incident. The places where comprehensive damage can be done most efficiently with the most lasting impact. Obafimi fought back on Monday. That needs to be said clearly and with full acknowledgement of what it cost him to do it. Because in the condition he was in, already having absorbed the opening of Brock's assault, dealing with the specific pain and the specific compromise that comes from having your most vulnerable physical systems targeted by someone who has spent months studying them, fighting back was not the physically optimal response. The optimal physical response was to go down, to stop absorbing damage, to wait for help. Obafimi did not make the optimal physical response. He made the only response available to a competitor of his character and his conviction. He fought. With everything remaining in a body that Brock Lesnar has now pushed past its functional limits multiple times. He swung, he grabbed, he attempted to turn a situation of complete disadvantage into something contested. And the fact that he could not, the fact that the accumulated damage from months of Brock's sustained campaign against him and the specific severity of Monday's assault made sustained resistance impossible, is not a reflection of Obafimi's limitations. It is a reflection of how extraordinary and how complete and how specifically calibrated Brock Lesnar's campaign against him has been. The ambulance itself deserves a specific conversation, because the visual of an ambulance parked outside a professional wrestling arena, lights active, taking a champion away from his own show, is one of the most jarring images WWE can produce. And it is jarring specifically because it exists at the intersection of the theatrical and the real in a way that most professional wrestling imagery does not. Ambulances appear in wrestling storylines regularly. They are part of the visual vocabulary of the product. But the specific conditions under which this ambulance appeared on Monday night, the urgency, the medical personnel's behavior, the way the backstage area around it was cleared and managed, the specific information that the people closest to the situation were communicating in the immediate aftermath, all of it carried the quality markers of genuine necessity rather than theatrical staging. Obafimi's medical situation after Monday night is the most important ongoing story in professional wrestling. Not for the championship implications, though those are significant and we will get to them. For the human implications. Because Oba has now been subjected to multiple severe physical assaults by the same person targeting the same vulnerabilities, and the cumulative neurological concern that creates is not something that heals on a standard wrestling injury timeline. Medical personnel dealing with the specific kind of damage Brock has inflicted across multiple incidents are not thinking in terms of weeks. They are thinking in terms of comprehensive evaluation, long-term monitoring, and the kind of protective protocols that professional athletes require when they have sustained the pattern of injury that Oba has sustained. And the championship, the physical object, the title reign, the competitive position becomes genuinely secondary to whether the human being wearing the championship is going to be fully, safely, neurologically whole on the other side of this. The championship picture in Oba's absence is the operational crisis that WWE's booking team is now managing in real time. Because a championship without its champion, a title picture built around a performer who is in a hospital rather than an arena, creates a vacuum that the roster's most ambitious performers will immediately move to fill. Every performer on Monday Night Raw who has been positioned near the title picture, every challenger who has been building toward a program with Oba, every performer whose trajectory requires the championship to be in play and available, all of them are recalculating right now. All of them are having conversations, making calls, positioning themselves for whatever the company decides the right path forward is when a champion is unavailable for an indeterminate period following a backstage assault that sent him to the hospital via ambulance. And Brock Lesnar, who created this crisis, who engineered this vacuum, who has systematically dismantled the competitive landscape of Monday Night Raw's championship picture through repeated targeted violence against its central figure. What does Brock want from all of this? That question has been hanging over every attack, every hospitalization, every ambulance ride. And the answer is becoming clearer with each successive incident. Brock Lesnar does not want the championship. If he wanted the championship, he would challenge for it through the competitive structures available to him. He does not want a program or a match or a WrestleMania moment. He has all of those things in his history in quantities that dwarf every other performer on this roster. What Brock Lesnar wants is acknowledgement. The specific, complete, unconditional acknowledgement that the transition of power that WrestleMania 42 represented, the moment when Obafimi's victory over Brock was supposed to definitively mark the passing of the torch from one generation to the next, did not happen on Brock's terms, was not sanctioned by Brock, and will not stand as the final word on the question of who the most dominant physical force in professional wrestling history is. Brock is not trying to reclaim a title. He is trying to reclaim a narrative. He is trying to force the world to unacknowledge what WrestleMania 42 said about the relationship between the past and the future of physical dominance in WWE. And the only way he knows how to make that argument is through his body. Through what his body can do to Obafimi's body in environments where the structures that level the playing field at WrestleMania do not exist. Through backstage corridors and ambulance rides in medical facilities and the specific, accumulated, potentially permanent damage that says more clearly than any promo ever could: this is not over, the torch was not passed, and the beast decides when this generation ends. Comment right now: does WWE finally strip Brock Lesnar of his access to the building, or does bringing him into a sanctioned match represent the only way to contain him? Can Obafimi's body survive another chapter of this war, or has Brock finally done enough cumulative damage to achieve what he set out to achieve? And who steps up to defend Obafimi while he is in that hospital because somebody in that locker room needs to find the courage to stand between the beast and his target? Drop everything in the comments. Share this video because this is the most important ongoing story in professional wrestling and the conversation cannot wait. This is Wrestling News CC. Subscribe immediately and turn on every notification. Because the ambulance has left the building, Brock Lesnar is still walking free, and Monday Night Raw has never been less safe for the people who make it worth watching. And we will be here for every update, every development.